Hey, what's up guys? So when it comes to powering your dash cam for parking recording mode, my preferred way to do it is instead of relying on the battery built into your car itself, is to use a dedicated dash cam specific parking mode battery. The downside is these can be pretty expensive. There's a number of different models, but the best ones all retail for anywhere between $350 to $400 or so. Now, I've also done a video that goes over some of the more affordable options that you can check out. Plus, there's actually been some new dedicated dashcam specific batteries that are coming out at a lower price point. That said, actually one of my favorite solutions that I've been finding is to use something like a power station. These have significantly larger capacities and they cost a fraction of what you get from a dashcam specific battery. Plus, it uses the same battery technology, lithium iron phosphate, which is good to and safe to install inside a car. Now there's a bunch of these different power stations available, and toward the end of the video I'll talk about a couple different models, but in this video we're going to be taking a look at the EcoFlow River 2. It retails for $169, and this one has a capacity of 256 watt hours compared to like 96 watt hours of a traditional dashcam battery, so a little over 2.5 times the capacity, which partially explains why it's so much bigger than a traditional dashcam battery, but again, at a fraction of the price. Now, in testing, the results have been a bit variable. You see, in my first round of testing with the VFO A329 2-channel in the low bitrate continuous parking recording mode, I got about 64 hours of parking record time, so it would record for about 2.5 days. This was way better from the typical 24 hours that I get from your traditional dashcam battery pack. Now on the forums though, other people were reporting record times of closer to 40 hours or maybe 45 hours, depending on what dashcam and settings they were using. And so for that reason, I retested here with my A329, and this time around I got a parking record time of just over 40 hours, which is more in line with what other people reported. Now I'm not sure why I've been seeing some variable results, or why the usable capacities of these batteries is lower than expected, given that the capacity is 2.5 times larger. But either way, this is significantly larger than what you get from a traditional dashcam battery. Again, you can get one of these, plus some of these will offer like expansion batteries to plug in if you want to double a parking record time, but then you're looking to closer to like $700 to $800 for one of these plus an expansion, versus this, which you can pick up for under $200. Additionally, because it's got so many different power output options, it's going to be a more versatile battery. For example, you can have this in your car and use it to power different tools. You can take it with you when you're out camping. You can use something like this for radar detector testing to power different radar guns. If you're at home, you could use it in case of like a power outage or something. It also supports plugging into solar panels, so in case of a power outage, you can keep this topped up, or even if you're out and about driving, you can have a solar panel charge this up, which can then continue to power on your dash cam for an even longer period of time. The battery has Bluetooth, so you can connect to it with an app to monitor the battery's status, change settings, update the firmware, or the battery also has Wi-Fi built in, so as long as the battery is connected to a Wi-Fi hotspot, you can actually connect to the battery pack remotely via the cloud as well. Now, all this stuff sounds great, but is there a catch? Actually, yeah, there are a few. First up, as I mentioned, this is going to be a bigger and bulkier battery pack, in part because of the fact that it's got a larger capacity, but it's also got the additional electronics here to do not only their USB power outputs, but you've got some AC power outlets, as well as a built-in cigarette lighter plug here as well. It's got some additional switches to choose which ones are going to be on and off. We'll kind of talk about some of the automation as far as making sure stuff that you need does turn on every time you start up your car. This is capable of doing that, but there are going to be some kind of hiccups, which we'll have to talk about. Additionally, when you start up your car, it is going to take longer for this battery pack to start outputting power here for your dash cams, particularly if the battery does drain fully while you're parked. These will actually start much more quickly, versus this can actually take a minute or up to about a minute 15 seconds or so to start outputting power to your dash cam when you restart your car. Plus then you've got the time for the dash cam itself to start powering on as well. And so there can actually be a longer period of time where you start up your car, you're driving around in a parking lot, but your dash cams have not yet powered on and begin recording. Third, this battery does actually slowly drain over time, even if the dash cam itself has shut off to save power, which can of course decrease your overall parking record time later on. And then fourth, finally, it's not going to natively plug into any dash cam the way that these batteries pack to plug directly into a dash cam. And you are going to have to make some custom wiring in order to have this work properly with the dash cam. And a big shout out to everybody over on the Dashcam Talk forums, especially GPAC, who's also been doing a bunch of testing and sharing his information online as well. I'll post a link to the full discussion areas over on the Dashcam Talk forums down in the video description, under the links to where you can purchase these battery packs if you'd like to pick one up as well. Now, to power your dash cam with this battery, the solution that we've been using is to tap into the USB ports here because they're going to automatically turn on every time you start up the car. And you don't have to worry about like manually turning stuff on and off like that. And this stuff, again, doesn't always turn back on every time you get in the car, which is a must to keep this all hands-free and ensure that it's always going to be powering your dash cam every time you get back in the car. And so what we're doing is we've actually been picking up USB cables like this, specifically cables that are designed to output power for various devices. We just kind of like cut off the tip here and then expose the power and ground cables, which we can access once we plug in the cable like this. And here's a wiring diagram for how everything is going to wire together. Feel free to pause it, or I'll link to this in the description as well. Again, a big shout out to GPAC for putting this together. And here's how everything is going to look in practice. Again, we're going to have our power coming out of the battery through this USB cable, which is going to then run to 2 of the 3 cables for the dash cam hardwire cable. One is going to be the ground wire, of course, and the second one is going to be your battery wire that provides power to the dash cam when the car is parked. Now, the dash cams are going to have a third wire. That's going to be kind of your accessory ignition triggered wire. This is what's going to tell the dash cam when to switch between driving and parking mode based on if the car is on or off or not. And we can actually connect this same wire to the power input wire if we like, that's going to be powering the battery pack itself. So when the car has power, it's going to start putting power here into the battery pack, charging up the battery, and at the same time, it can also put power into this wire, letting the dash cam itself know that the car is turned on. Then when you turn off the car, power stops flowing into here, so the battery pack is no longer charging, and at the same time, this is going to lose power, which then tells the hardwire cable to switch the dash cam into parking recording mode, and it's going to start pulling power from the battery pack here itself. Now, to charge the battery pack itself, there's actually 2 different options here. The one in the car is going to be this connector right there. Now, the battery in the box is going to come with a cigarette lighter power adapter here like this so that you can plug it in, and it makes it super easy to get it installed and up and running. Now, in a car, I typically prefer having things hardwired, and for that reason, you may want to pick up just like a hardwire cable here like this. It's not included in the box. However, because of the fact that it's just using a pretty standard XT60 connector here like this, there's a lot of companies that make cables that plug into that port, and they just have a standard, power and ground input like this so that you can hardwire this battery pack directly into the car, which is super convenient. Now, it's going to be able to pull up to 8 amps or so. You can actually choose the maximum charge speeds. I find that it can pull a little bit more in practice. It's rated for 100 watts in, but in practice, I find closer to 125 watts. Either way, it translates to about 3 hours or so to fully recharge the battery from dead when you're out driving. Now, I know 3 hours can be quite a while, and so for that reason, if you like, you can also plug in with the AC adapter here and plug it in when you're at home. I know a lot of people love being able to do this with dedicated dashcam battery packs, but I love that it's actually got it built in so you don't have to deal with adapters or switching cables here or anything. Additionally, this is going to charge way faster. It's going to be charging at 360 watts instead of 100 or 125. It basically allows you to fully recharge the battery from dead in an hour instead of 3 hours here with this plug. So this is going to be the main one you use while driving. This you can charge when you're at home. There's also a fan right there, which kind of kicks on when it's charging over AC. It does get a little bit noisy, but luckily it doesn't kick on or anything when you're just driving around and you're plugged in here with the XT60 connector. Additionally, because this connector is more versatile, EcoFlow also has a cable that you can use to hook it up to a solar panel if you'd like to charge from the power of the sun as well. And then finally, speaking of versatility, you can also charge the battery pack over USB Type-C if you like as well. This is the slowest charging option. It can only pull 60 watts max as opposed to closer to 100 or 360 from the other ones. And we're going to be using this port here to power our dash cam, so we're not going to use it in practice, but we could also power it here over USB and charge the battery pack that way if we wanted to as well. Now, something else to be aware of is even if you have the dash cam itself set to shut off after, say, 8 hours or so, to help save the remaining battery capacity in the battery itself will actually still continue to slowly drain over time, even with the dash cam shut off and nothing pulling power out of the dash cam. I'm finding that the self-discharge rate is at about 8 to 13% per day or so. I'm finding the display on the front of the battery pack isn't super accurate, but kind of in that range, let's say 10-ish% per day. So even with the dash cam off, you're still going to be slowly losing battery recording time in the battery pack. Now, to help with this, there actually is a timeout feature in the battery that's going to allow the battery to shut itself off if it's noticing that power is no longer being pulled from, say, a dash cam or something. However, with some of the things when they're plugged in, like over USB or something, even if the dash cam shuts off and so there's no longer power being pulled, well, it still sees that there's something plugged into that port, and so the battery is going to remain turned on and slowly self-draining, even if you're trying to use the timeout feature in the battery to turn the battery off when nothing is pulling power from it any longer. So there's going to be some difficulties actually avoiding this self-discharge issue here with the battery. Again, it's a really big capacity battery, so it's going to take a while for it to fully deplete, but this still is going to be an issue nonetheless. Now, one workaround for this that I've seen online is you can pick up the River 3 instead of the River 2 that I've been using here in this video. Now, GPAC on the Dashcam forums has mentioned that you can get a USB-A power cable and then have it stick to 5 volts instead of 12 volts. Now, the hardwire cable for the Dashcam is still going to be expecting 12 volts plugged into a car, and so if you remove the voltage regulator, so it just works at straight 5 volts over USB, then you can make it work. But again, you are going to have to do some custom cabling here to make all of this stuff work in practice. And speaking of the River 3, let's take a closer look at that, because that actually does seem to be a preferred battery option compared to the River 2 that I've been using here for a couple reasons. Now, it's a little smaller battery, the capacity is slightly lower, and there's no like big handle sticking out of the back. The handle is actually built into the battery itself, which does remove a little bit of the capacity, but I think that makes it maybe more install friendly in the car, being a little bit less bulky. Additionally, in the app, it has a port memory option specifically for the cigarette lighter plug. So if you want to plug the Dashcam into the cigarette lighter here this way, you can do that. On the River 2, even if you turn it on, this will not turn back on next time you get back in the car. But the River 3 does have that capability. However, if you're using the timeout feature to try and save the battery capacity in the battery when the Dashcam itself shuts off, that port memory feature is not going to work. So kind of the solution here is like if you want to use the cigarette lighter plug, just let the Dashcam completely drain the battery to dead, and then you don't have to worry about messing around with timeouts, which are going to basically disable the port memory feature. Additionally, in the app, you also have the ability to manually turn off the battery pack when it's like in a garage or something, which can be kind of convenient, though I prefer never having to mess with battery packs. I just kind of want to like have everything as hands-free as possible, but that is a difference. And then finally, the River 3 is also $10 less than the River 2. Then there's also the River 3 Plus as well, which actually has a slightly larger capacity than the River 2, about 11% larger at 286 watt hours instead of 256. And it's got some little things like a built-in light and UPS function as well. And then there's a bunch of other batteries available as well with different capacities and different output options, etc. But kind of the River 3s seem to kind of be the sweet spot as far as running it in a car, specifically for a Dashcam. Finally, let's take a quick look at the app. Now, the app is going to be a more convenient way to see a lot of the same information that you've got displayed here on the battery itself, especially when the battery is maybe like installed in your trunk or something. It's going to be a lot easier to access it from your phone. So right now, for example, you can see that we've got 77% remaining. Give me another 68 hours of parking record time, which I actually find to be inaccurate here on this battery. I actually get less than it's showing me here in the app. Or on the battery, but it does show me that. It'll also show me things like, how much power it's drawing when it's charging. It'll display it there, as well as how many watts it's outputting to the Dashcam. You can see this one's actually turned on right now in parking recording mode. And then we also have the ability to go over here in the app and start adjusting the different settings in the battery. So for example, we can go and take a look at the input speeds. We can have it charging at up to 8 amps, as I mentioned before, from the car. We can also choose what source it's charging from. So maybe you have it plugged into a car or charging off the solar panels. Again, it's more capable than just a traditional car Dashcam battery pack. We've got the timeout options that I mentioned before, so how long it's going to take when maybe the Dashcam shuts off, it stops pulling power here, and the battery itself shuts off. Though, as I mentioned, there are some times where this is not going to be working properly, but it is kind of a cool option. We've also got things like the ability to update the firmware for the battery here as well. And then if we go back to the main screen here, if you take a closer look, you'll actually see a little Wi-Fi icon right there next to the name for the battery. You'll also see Wi-Fi displayed right there on the display of the battery itself. It's actually hooked up to my home's Wi-Fi network as well. And so for that reason, if I'm maybe out and about, I can actually access the battery pack remotely when I'm not near the car. So if you've got this installed in a car, that could be a pretty cool use case. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that this has a Wi-Fi connection when your car is parked. So maybe you're parked near your home or something. Or if, let's say, you have like a Blackview Dashcam with cloud capabilities and the Dashcam can provide a Wi-Fi hotspot to your battery pack, specifically when the car is off, then you would actually be able to access the battery information here remotely, just like you can do with the Blackview battery, but you're going to be able to do it here through the EcoFlow app as well, which is pretty cool. And so overall, I've actually really been liking some of these power stations, specifically when used as a Dashcam battery pack, because they help to solve some of the complaints that people have with the Dashcam specific ones, namely the price, when they're $300, $350, $400 for a battery, while this is going to be $170, so way cheaper. Plus, you're looking at significantly more parking record time at a fraction of the price. Now, I know there are other battery packs that are coming out now, which I'm going to be covering in upcoming reviews, that are more affordable as well, but I think this has a lot of advantages with the larger capacity, with the added versatility, with the extra ports and stuff. You got to be okay, of course, with like the extra bulk and size, so maybe installing it like in a trunk or somewhere where you have the space. But I think these are actually going to be a much better bang for the buck. You are going to then wind up having some issues as well because they're not specifically designed for dash cams to make it work with the dash cam, especially some of the cabling. You are going to have to like make some custom cables in order to make it happen. Not a big deal. I covered it earlier in the video and I've got the parts that you need down in the description. And same thing, like if you want to get a cable here to hardwire it in the car, you can buy that as just like a generic cable as well. It doesn't come with it in the box. But again, you can totally make it work without maybe spending quite a bit more money for a traditional Dashcam battery pack. I think the advantage for something like this is going to be the convenience and the size. These are made specifically for dash cams. They're easier to wire in. They come with all the cables that you need. They do a much better job as far as when you turn on your car to start recording much quicker. The power stations do take longer to provide power to the dash cam. And these are also going to be much smaller. They're a lot thinner, so you can stuff them in tinier spaces under a chair or wherever else. And so pros and cons to both, but I think specifically for the complaint of like Dashcam battery packs are too expensive, which is totally valid. Yes, of course, there are other options available that are more affordable, provide even longer parking record time, and have some additional features to boot, while still using the same lithium iron phosphate battery technology internally as what you've got with the dedicated Dashcam battery packs. And so with that said, yeah, these actually seem really cool. As I mentioned before, I think the sweet spot that people are finding is not the River 2 that I've been using here, but actually the River 3 or the River 3 Plus. So if you want any of these batteries, I'll link to them down in the description as well. And then finally, you'll also find links to more information and reading and discussion linked down there too. And so with that said, yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This has definitely been a fun project for me to play with. And then I also want to cover some of the new battery packs that are coming out that are more affordable than like your traditional Dashcam battery packs, but still provide most all of the same functionality as well. And so with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you in the next one.